Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello, welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. Got Greg Machinery and Pete Peterson on to talk about what's happening in the world of auctions and whatnot. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Casey. How you doing?
Good.
Having trouble talking today. Other than that, I'm doing okay.
Well, the reason I said in the world of auctions and whatnot, because there's a lot of whatnot that came out here yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so
yeah, we kind of have to talk about that, don't we?
You kind of have to. Man. There's been
we're moving iron.
A few things that came out.
Yeah. No, that was an amazing sequence when President Trump started talking about John Deere and his thoughts or hopes or whatever of creating a situation, basically pre-def engines and
right,
creating opportunities for manufacturers to strip machines down. And I saw the clip I've been traveling and I saw the clip and I couldn't believe it. It was just amazing. I've been covering auctions for 36 years, Casey, and everywhere I go, especially the last few years, you know how it is, people. There's chatter, but people have been in my ear forever, like, oh my gosh, if Deere or Case or Ford or whoever, if they could just make a simpler, our favorite model of that Boxcar Magnum, that 7120, boy, oh boy. And everyone understands it costs more to make now. But the engine, the emissions, of course, that was, you can't. And what he said, was like, what if you could? And then what would people buy them? What would the new ones cost? Mm-hmm. What would that do to a value of a 2-year-old one? The ripples. And this is just in our little world of agriculture. My God, what about trucks on the road?
About over-road trucks and everything else that's out there. That opens a pretty big can of worms. And some of this, some of this stuff, the toothpaste is out of the tube already, right? You can't put it back in there, but you could absolutely go and say, hey, tell you what, we're going to do these things. And there's going to be, we talked about this for probably 25, 30 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah.
And we had a podcast before the podcast, but as you're working your way through this and you start thinking about, okay, the easy button here is, all right, cool. From the factory, we're going to have a deleted engine, and we're going to either leave all the stuff on there so that if regulation changes or something, whatever happens, then you can go back in and make it where you need to be, or take it all off and, do that. I've seen machines come through that are missing the big 55-gallon drum muffler on the front and on the stack and all that stuff. And,
right.
And that's not, I think the one came through the dealership that had been deleted, and we had to put it back together to get it so we could go out and sell it again. And right. I want to say it cost something like $45,000 to make that happen. Right?
I bet.
So now, if you take that from the factory and you take it off, does it lower the price? 50,000, 100,000? Who knows? What it actually does.
Right.
The technology. The stuff's out there. I've shipped stuff to different countries, and have had D-tier kits that you can get, that you take the tier 4 engine down to a tier 2 or 3 or whatever it might be, to send it over places where the fuel is not as good as it is here in the United States, so that it'll actually run and do what it's supposed to. So that stuff's all on the table. It's all out there for it to work. I've heard the same thing too, man. If we could just go back and they should have stopped making adjustments to tractors in the 90s. I've heard that conversation with guys, I don't know how many times. If I had $1 for every time I had a conversation like that, Greg, we wouldn't be talking right now, right? I'd be
I'd have $1 trillion, Casey.
I'd have so much money I couldn't, I wouldn't need to be doing anything. But I think the same thing that's being said about those tractors is that it's the simplicity of the nature of the machine, where they could, a lot of guys want to do their own work and those kind of things, and that stuff comes into play.
Yeah.
You start looking at software that you have to download and everything else that comes into that. There's all kinds of moving parts that come into that. I think when you look at this, it's what happens to the stuff that's already out there now? And I think that's the big question, right? So now you've got this brand new 2025, 2026, 2027, whatever your model it is, and it comes out of the factory and it's $150,000 less or whatever the number is than what the other machines are. That has an effect on the used marketplace. And it's that trickle down that you see coming through is the same thing that's out there. I mean, just like price increases lift up the price of used equipment, right? It might, if there's a 5% price increase, you're not getting 5% down all the way down to the bottom of the trough there on used equipment, but portions of that 5% price increase are applied back to different various things. Closer than you are, the greater that variance is applied back to that machine. But as you kind of work your way through those things, you go drop the price of stuff. That means that there's stuff out there that's going to fall right along with it.
Oh,
so
it would be fascinating.
It's kind of it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario in a lot of ways.
Well, like I say, I rewatched that clip like 4 times last night, and I was fascinated that he said it the way he said. It was very plain, but I'm the guy who's spent my whole life writing down, compiling prices on what people pay for different things and why. I listen to why. Hey Chuck, why did you pay $150,000 for that 2009 whatever? And what Chuck has told me, and what every farmer told me, Pete, I like the simpler machines. Mm-hmm. And so, just last week, Big Iron had a John Deere 8210, like a 2000 model, super nice machine, 2,600 hours. I think it was out of Nebraska. 133,250, highest auction price ever. So I get this cascade of proof that farmers, when they find the nicest, older, simpler machines, they pay double, triple premiums for them. And then at the same time, lately, as we go forward here, on the advertising side, whether it's upcoming auction or private items, it used to be kind of behind the shadows when things would be deleted on the engine, but now it's like right up front, like we deleted this. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you want to get more money for it, I would advertise it the same way at auction. So that's the swirl when he said that. Now, again, the logistics are like, oh, my God, if you're a manufacturer, your production lines, how are you going to – on the one hand, I think what people in their head are thinking like, oh, if Deere could just build a new 7810 or Case, give me a new 8920. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it's going to cost more. We understand it's 2025 or 2026, but give me that. Now, what would that cost versus what it cost 25 years ago to make it? And then people's chatter about, I would buy it, would they buy it? Don't know. And would the manufacturers, I mean, so they have to judge like, well, okay, President Trump's got 3 years left. Is this just going to boomerang the other way? Can we redo our production lines? I mean,
that's the thing.
Just a hell of a spot. What do you do? But on the one hand, one thought I had, Casey, was I've always thought that our particular space is very, very difficult to get into in terms of, if you're making tractors and combines, sprayers. I mean, the money involved, it's intensive, the dealer networks. I mean, the barriers to entry are humongous. Now, what he said yesterday, I mean, when I listened to that, it's like, again, it would have to all pass Congress, roll back the emissions and all this stuff. And again, the ramifications over the road, let alone our vehicles, are probably way, way out, way farm country. But in theory, if you could do it, would there be someone with, say, $50 billion? Maybe an Elon Musk kind of guy. I mean, there's a guy that made his own electric cars. Would someone go, I want to build a simpler, just horsepower tractor and come to market with it? Now, you don't have a dealer network. How would that work? Humongous barriers. But it was like that wasn't even possible. But when he said what he said, it's like, well, in theory, that door maybe just popped open a little bit with a zillion billion logistical and political things. I mean, the politicians would have to pass it. And oh my God, I don't know how that would all work. But I just, it was fascinating what he,
Oh
because
yeah,
he verbalized
it's
what people are thinking.
yeah. I mean, it's really it's a unique conversation to think about, right? Because if you look at current regulations right now, I'm going off memory here, but I want to say that anything above 750 horsepower is exempt from final tier 4 engine. And I don't want to say anything under 25 horsepower or something like that is less than 20 is less than or I'm sorry, is exempt from final. I'm sorry, it's 75 horsepower. Okay, less than 75 horsepower is off there. So you already have that, and a lot of that too. It's ridiculous the fact that it's over 750 horsepower and not 500. Like it did. Like why? Because I'll tell you why. Because the railroad, that was their exemption for the engines that they have, and those machines are all like 1,000+ horsepower engines, 750 horsepower engines,
There you go.
those kind of things. And that was where that came from, right? So that was part of that. Now it's if you can tell me that you're using less you're putting out less emissions at 500 horsepower than you are 750. Hey, what's it matter? Who cares, right? But that is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous regulatory law, right? Like if it's either all or none, right? And that's kind of how my view on that's always been. And as you work your way through that, the tooth, like I talked about earlier, the toothpaste is out of tube. Okay, cool. So we go talk about the used side, which is where my passion for this market lays at, is on the used equipment side of it. What that does. Okay, cool. I go and get a machine now that's a final tier 4 engine. I can detier that, but there's going to be a cost associated with that. So now it's even not only is the value of the machine going to drop because what the new one is, now you got to spend more money to detier it so somebody else maybe want to buy it from you or whatever it is down that path. It's just from the factory. I get it. You can click that box if you want to when you're going through building your machine, and you can see what that does to the cost and how those things operate. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of balance sheets out there that are going to be heavily affected by a sliding market based around the value of machines that come. Now, if it's only 10% of the population, Greg, you and I both know what that looks like, right? That's not going to really affect anything. But if everybody checks that box and 100% of the machines that come out of the factory are like that, that's going to have a dramatic effect on the price of used equipment, which then is going to have a dramatic effect on people's balance sheets. And we go from there. Now, is short-term pain great for long-term gain? Man, that's is it juice worth the squeeze type of thing? That's the conversation you got to have. But I watched this thing move along, and I've had the same conversation with guys. Like, I hear you, and I totally agree with what you're saying, but understand what you're asking for. And this is what shows
correct.
up.
The ripples would be,
Yeah.
I mean, just, and again, you and I are talking about used tractor values, used combine values, what could happen. I mean, everyone has 2-3 cars in their garage.
Yeah.
And I mean, would they be happy if used values on their 2023 model, whatever, all of a sudden, whoop, kind of tankoed because everyone wants I mean, it's a Pandora's box, right? But for someone who's literally spent a life and built a business around data points on what people want today in the used market and how much you're going to pay for it, I mean, it's just, you sit back and think about the ramifications. It's like, wow, holy smokes, what if? And we know, not just President Trump, but obviously politicians forever, you can say things. And that's how, sometimes it usually takes quite a while for an idea to, and that's how, emission engines, for our environment, and that argument won the day, and they brought the regulations in, and it was what it was. And you can turn and go the other way, but how long does it take? And when I was rewatching that again last night, and it was right or wrong, I mean, he called out John Deere. I mean, he said it multiple times, and I was like, my goodness, that's quite a pinch there. I mean, any manufacturer, like,
they've all done it, right? There's not one of them that's
they're all right. They're all this, it's the same. So it was just a fascinating little exercise. I figured we better talk about it because when it comes to machinery, that's what everyone's talking about today. Anyway,
and if you watch how those things play out, you start looking at the overall kind of spectrum of the machinery, I mean, the only reason it exists is because of as government regulation, right? It's the only reason any of this stuff exists is because of that. And it went to there, and then the price of equipment is absurd. It is ridiculously high, and again, that's all based around government regulation, COVID, and shutdowns, and all the other stuff that came with that, which screwed the entire world up. Not just on the equipment side, but trucks, farm pickups, tractors, trailers, trucks, all the stuff. I mean, it jacked it all up.
They went through the roof. Just with not just machinery that went through the roof. So,
and the thing about that is, Greg, it's like government regulation, right? I've never seen a government repeal a law that they might repeal some stuff, right? But it kind of seems like it all kind of makes its way back in eventually. And it's the same thing with this pricing thing. I mean, how do you reduce the price by saying, hey, Mr. Whatever, your steel price is too high, so the government's going to tell you to lower your price?
Well, and I just found it fascinating trying to find the lines on what different sides of politics are these days have become very interesting. It gets very personal, obviously, but generally speaking, farmers, they're open market people who want to compete. That's what farmers do. They compete. We'll make a great product, and we want to compete on the world stage. So you're right. With any kind of government force dictating price, it's so weird because it goes against like what's inside us. But the costs are so high. Farmers are so pinched at every turn, and it's and again in this whole mix, and everyone's tired, and it was just very plainly spoken, and he said it, and it was like, wow, that's where maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe action coalesces. Well, it'll be fascinating to see, but holy smokes. I can't even imagine what the different ripples, like you were bringing up, what that could be for in every direction. Because I've been traipsing all over the country here going to auctions, one I have for 36 years. But Saturday I was in North Carolina and they had 5 late model Fendt tractors. So that was an interesting test case because people are coming up to me going, Pete, what do you think of these Fendts? And I'm like, well, people wherever I go say they like them. But the reason they were asking me, because they're like, what do you think that 936 with 822 hours, what's that going to bring in 10 minutes? And I was like, well, I haven't seen one that nice before, and we're going to find out. And I stood there and filmed it at 814 hours. Extended warranty went for $285. And then down the line, he had a couple 724s, one with a loader that brought $245, 929 hours with a warranty. By the way, two of those 5 are heading back north, up northern U.S. But the number of farmers that came up to me that had either run them or maybe been with custom operators running them. And again, chatter is chatter, but they're in my ear like, oh my God, they're fantastic. I love those things. And the farmer he was downsizing, basically. He was keeping the cattle. And he'd run all different kinds. And he said, Pete, I just asked him, I said, Tony, how do you like your Fendts? And his face lit up. And he started to tell me about it. And now, what do they cost new? And, okay, Tony, then is he happy with $285 on that 936 a couple years later versus maybe what a Deere or a Case would bring? It's always been fascinating to, again, on the late model side, how well does something hold its value, quote unquote. But one thing I would say, the people of North Carolina are the best. I love North Carolina. Those farmers down there, they just are so welcoming. Tony had an Alice Chalmers tractor, an 8050, two-wheel with 2,003 hours on it. It's beautiful. It was at the end. It was about 20 pieces after these Fendts. And I'm filming the Fendts. And he had a John Deere S760 combine that was the hottest one on the sale, I think. That one had 708 step hours, and it went for 280 with no heads. I thought that was more than I thought it was going to bring. But I wanted to film the Alice 8050. But 5 young guys from Carolina there. They wanted to talk. We were having the greatest time, and I missed filming the 8050, which brought 26,000, which is the highest two-wheel I've ever seen. Again,
Yeah.
older, pre-def, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
and that might be a collector item for someone. But yeah, it was a great day in North Carolina. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the one thing about the Fendt track, I mean, I've talked to a ton of people who had them. Everyone that's had them has liked them. That's the one thing about that. And I would say this: if you're listening to this right now, you know, explore your options, man. I mean, really take a hard look at where things are at, what you're doing, and go from there. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there to look at. The thing you have to weigh and I just use equipment guy talking right now. Things you have to weigh is dealer network and resellability. Those are two things I always take into consideration when I'm looking at a piece of equipment and truly understand what that looks like. And those are the things that matter when it comes back to the used side, right? And it's what's your dealer network look like, and what's that resellability look like, and what's that marketplace look like, and they all have pros and cons, man. There's not a perfect machine out there. They all break.
Right.
And that was my favorite line to use when someone would call in. They're like, everything breaks, boss. So if you're trying to tell me that, let me tell you that this is better than the other. I mean, everything breaks. So it's your availability to parts and labor, parts and service, and those kind of things that are going to dictate the value of that machine on the backside.
Right. And that's why, and I did talk with the Fendt dealer who was at the sale, who Tony bought the tractors from, I think Atlantic.
Atlantic and Southern.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
And I have his business card right out here. I can grab it. He's a super nice guy. Wrong card. Adam Montague. I think he's a third gen guy. Great conversation. But right, that's the thing with the Fendts. When people come up to me, they're what they know on the red or green, or they know their dealers are local. And with Fendt, I mean, easy for me to say, but if they could increase their dealer network, put it this way: I was on a press call a number of years ago on a product release for Fendt, and I was just a fly on the wall listening. But the other reporters on the call, when it opened up, the number one question they asked is, "Are you growing your dealer network?" And I smiled because I was like, well, that's the right question. Now, again, super difficult to do that. But, yeah, you put something up for sale, there's a lot that goes behind why people pay what they pay or don't pay.
Yeah, and one thing, too, about the Fendt side of it, a lot of those guys, they are coming from a cat background, right? So where they have a lot of mobile service and those kind of things, and construction things, right. A lot of mobile services. And you're starting to see more and more of that on the traditional John Deere and Case side, where there get to be more and more of those things. And the conversation I used to have with friends of mine all the time were, how many dealerships do you really need to have, right? Do you got to have one every 30 miles? If you have mobile service and those kind of things, then maybe you don't need to have all that. But because ultimately, at the end of the day, my joke a lot of time was like, there's a lot of farmers out there that have nicer shops than we do. So let's do the work in their shop. And they don't. I mean, so those are the kind of conversations that you're having. And again, that kind of goes back to the dealer network side of it. Is just because I've got a location, I might have 10 service trucks running out of that one location. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a whole different scenario. We start talking about those things, and I think.
On the one hand, it's interesting. I think what you were talking about there, Casey, we could circle it back because, again, people, whether to whatever level it's in jest or whatever, but people, when I'm out visiting over the years, are like, man, Pete, I tell you what, if Deere could just build a new 4455, Case build that new boxcar, and then think about it on the dealer side. As the contraction has happened, farmers, we understand why, but they're like, well, I don't, I used to have 5 dealers here locally. I could, and they understand why the manufacturers have done what they've done, contracted. But, as we're remembering what was as we hurtle forward at 100 million miles an hour. And as humans, we verbalize, I like the way it used to be. But sometimes it's very rare when you can reach behind you and pull forward and say, okay, here, I just built you a new 7810. Now it's going to cost, and we were, that half-hour conversation we had before we started recording, we were trying to, and you're as sharp as anybody on that. And then it's like, dang, would people really pay that for a new, quote unquote, well, it would be a brand new 7810 with a older engine in it or a Magnum. The chatter wise, they tell me they would out at auctions. But when it comes to writing the check, would they do it? Mm-hmm. And as we're hurtling forward, it's a fascinating what if question. We'll probably never have an answer to it, but what President Trump said the other day, I was like, oh, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're going to see it. I think the easy way to kind of measure that a little bit was take the 4455 you're talking about and get a complete reman, get a complete new transmission, get the whole deal, new everything, all wiring, everything brand new again.
Right.
And that would basically be what it would cost to do the same thing at the factory.
Right.
But the bigger hurdle to overcome at the factory is the retooling part of that. Right. And all the stuff they have to do to come back in and do that. Now, I wanted to do this a long time, but I could never figure out how to make it work because it just, and what really triggered, I went to Ukraine back before the war 4 or 5 times, and 3 or 4 times, I guess. And I remember walking into this guy's shop, and they had it's a 50 series combine. I don't remember, 9750 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but they had it all the way torn down to just the frame. The rotor was out, cab was off, the whole thing. It was a frame, and they were repainting the frame and going back through this. And it was the 3rd time that they'd done that with that particular combine.
Right.
And they put all brand new parts in there. And I'm like, holy crap, how much does that cost to do that? And he goes, well, it's a lot different here than it is in the United States. We can basically, the guy was telling me, like, our labor costs here are about $200 US a month to have that guy work here. And I'm like, well, okay.
We're trying to figure out how to get that pipeline from
like, that's a no-brainer because because of the shop thing. And
right.
I'm not going to sit here and say that the shop rates are out of control because they have people in there that are working hard every day. They're well-trained people that can do some very, very good stuff.
And dealers have to compete for that talent to get those folks. I mean, it's really hard to keep those talented people.
Right. So if you take that 9750 or whatever it was, and you can put a whole new rotor in it and every little this, that, and the other thing, grommets and everything else that go in that, I can't even begin to tell you what that's probably $250,000 in just parts, right?
Right.
And then you got the labor associated to do that with that. So now let's just say the labor is another $150,000 to do that. So now you're sitting at $400,000, right?
But even there, you're at $400, and what's the new one cost?
Well, that's exactly right. So a new Class 7 combine, which that's what that is, would be probably $650-ish, something like that would be my guess off the top of my head.
You just triangulated the other side of it. The people that I see when I'm out at auction, or an extreme example, people remember this story. You can find it on YouTube, but this was back in 2012. A friend of mine in New York, Kevin, Kevin, with Will Run Farms. He's the guy that would go around and collect and buy all the super low hour.
Yep.
And Kevin, I apologize if you're watching. I'm old and I forget last names. I can remember auction prices. But anyway, Kevin bought a 4455 with 3 hours on it in 1994 using the DTN system before the internet. He found it through his dealer. It was a doctor in Michigan had it. Had a couple kids, just never used it on his farm. Kevin bought it for $58,000 in 94, brought it home to his barn in New York. He'd been hearing the stories about, growing up and his grandpa, the 4020s going up in value, the 4440s. So he's like, I'm going to take that truth and I'm going to make money at it. So he bought this 4455, $58,000, put it in his shed. 2012, so it's 18 years later, he advertises it for sale. And I'm weighing it here, but I think it was like 155. Mm-hmm. And a buyer from Mexico bought it. And what made people sad about the story was when the buyer talked to Kevin about, shipping it to Mexico, Kevin was like, well, can we put it in bubble wrap for you? I mean, and they're like, no, we don't care. We're going to pound on it. It's just, I'm going to give that to he goes, we can rip that thing apart 100 times and rebuild it. So we thought that's the nicest one we'll ever find. We'll buy it. We'll run it for like a bazillion hours. And that part of the story made the U.S. ag audience super sad, actually, because they're like, that's a piece of our history with 3 hours on it, and you're just going to pound on it. But the guy in Mexico was just looking at straight business.
Right.
So my guys, my crew is my crew, and they can hammer on this thing, and this thing's bulletproof, and we can run it forever and rebuild it.
Yep.
So it's fascinating. It all depends on how you look at it, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you go back through and you strip out half of the electronics out of these machines and the sensors and this other thing. A great example I had the same conversation with a guy probably 3 years ago, something like that. We were talking about the longevity of machines and how they're not there anymore. And I used to run a tractor for 10,000 hours and yada, yada, yada. And I said, I'm sure you used to run them for 10,000 hours, but they broke during that time, during that 10,000 hours, right? I go, but the biggest difference today is I go get a Ziploc bag, throw your laptop in there. And I was being facetious when I said this. Throw your laptop in there. Now drag that laptop through the field behind your tractor next time you're planting or whatever, and then open up your laptop and tell me how well it works. He goes, well, it's just full of dust. I go, exactly. You're taking a very fine-tuned technological machine and running it through the dirtiest, dustiest place you could possibly come up with. And granted, they got sealed boxes and sealed all this kind of stuff, but again, that stuff fails, right? And it's just stuff happens, and the tools that are designed to make that stuff work so you can work on it are, there's a ton of specialty tools out there, right? And
right.
I can tell you, growing up, we worked on my truck that I drove through every possible place I shouldn't have drove it through every weekend and tore the heck out of it. And we did all our own work, right? And we had a few little special tools here and there. Well, my son's got a 2006 Ford pickup. That's 20 years old. And it's not like working on my 1985 Chevy pickup that I had in high school, right? Totally different animal. And it's, again, I cuss it every time I'm working on it with him, because it's like you got to stand on your head or undo a motor mount or something stupid like that to do the simplest things that you could just. Back then, I could set in the engine compartment and work on whatever I wanted to work on. Right. So things have changed, and go back from there. I will tell you this: I would have a hard time trading my 2024 Chevy pickup for a 1985 everyday driver Chevy pickup, and the things that go with that, because you get used to the little stupid things that you get used to, right?
Right.
And you get stuff pops up, and
I had along those lines, Casey. This was about a year ago. I posted a picture. I found, as I move through and do stuff, I found this picture of like a 70s pickup. I think it was an advertising piece from Chevy, and the bench seat. And I was like, oh man, things were easier in the bench seat days. And I just posted that, kind of just tongue in cheek,
Yep. And
it, people start commenting on it like, oh man, I love, like you said, I love my 1980, square body. I love this. I love that. But then some people started commenting like, I don't know if I want to drive to Omaha on a bench seat.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. It's a different animal, right? You get used to, 7-position seating where you can get that seat just the way you want it,
hey,
And
I'm an old Minnesotan. If I can't heat my seat, my steering wheel, wow, we got something to talk about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think it's human. Like I think we just solved all this, Casey. As humans, we like to we talk about what was, and we're just being human. I liked my 1982 pickup. I liked my 4440. But we're hurtling forward this way a zillion miles an hour. And so, again, manufacturers, of whether it's trucks or tractors or whatever, always had a super difficult job to give you the tool you need, at a price point that, as the market will bear. And we're just living in very interesting times right now. And I think this conversation we're having, when I saw what President Trump said last night, I was just imagining coffee shops around the world. Just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. We'll see what happens.
For sure. Yeah. Well, good place to stop there, Greg. Like my grandpa, before he passed away, he was born in the late 1920s, and he, I remember him saying, like, he goes, when I hear people talk about the good old days, he goes, the good old days are today. Try shaving your face with a straight razor and tell me how much you like those stupid Bic razors you like to complain about so much. I'm like, good point, Grandpa. Good point.
Hey, there's wisdom.
That's wisdom. That's right.
I tell young people, number one machine repeat advice is listen to your parents and grandparents.
Yep.
So yeah, there's wisdom in that for sure.
For sure. All right, Greg, folks want to reach out to you and get some more information about what you have coming up as far as where you're going to be at auction-wise and stuff you have cooking. Easy way to do that is hit you up on what Twitter is probably the best place to go?
Twitter, message there. If you're not on Twitter, just go to our website, machinerepeat.com. Our phone number and emails on the bottom. Send a note. I will, Casey, be in Markville, Indiana on Friday, the 12th, covering an auction by our good friends Jeff Boone Realty and Auction. They got a low-houred 420 Steiger with a PTO, 1,058 hours. Now, again, here's the interesting thing. Jeff and I were talking about the sale, and he goes, Pete, there's one other tractor I got to tell you about. And I'm like, okay. 1991 white 195. Okay, so you don't see many of those. Mechanical front. Yeah. 9,900 hours. Looks nice. But Jeff tells me, Pete, when we went out to take the pictures of this thing for the auction, this family was so connected to their tractor that before we took it away to bring it to the auction yard in Markville, the whole family came out for one last family picture by the white 195. And my whole deal is I wanted Jeff to say that because, yes, you're just buying a 195 on the auction on Friday, but you're buying a 195 that was a piece of the heart of a farm in central Indiana, and they loved that tractor, and they cared for it. And I know what other 195s have brought with those hours. We'll see what the one brings on Friday that was cared for like that. So it'll be a fun day.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, Greg. Well, good talking to you. We'll talk again next week.
All right, sounds great, Casey. Have a good one.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcast after these messages.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast Markets. I've got Sean Hackett with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida on to talk about what's happening in the market. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. We're in the chilly 60s here, trying to bear down.
Do you have a falling lizard warning out there right now?
Falling lizard warnings.
Kind of briskness?
Yeah, falling squirrel warnings, falling everything.
It's out of control.
And you can go alligator down
there. Yeah. There you go. Because water does freeze in Florida around 60 degrees. It's a little different than the rest of the world.
Congeals.
It's Florida.
Yeah, congeal.
Congeals. There you go.
It's like a jelly. It's like salt lake, you just kind of float.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel sorry for you guys down there.
Yeah, it's rough. I was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan last week speaking at a conference, and
it's a good week to go there.
-10 with stiff 30-mile-an-hour breeze, and then I was in Toronto, which was a balmy -2.
Yep.
Yeah. Then I brought out the shorts and the sandals in Chicago. It was only 5. And then settled into Davenport, Iowa, and it was really I was getting suntan lotion that was 8 degrees. So
yeah, it was. You've been talking about this for a while, coming into what this weather pattern would look like coming into winter. As you see how these things are kind of coming out, you've talked about this could be a top 5, top 10 cold winter, and this over Thanksgiving breakout in Painell, Nebraska was one of the coldest ones that I can remember for a while. It wasn't like killer cold by any means, but it was, we were talking about 20-degree weather and some snow and some single digits overnight, which if you contrast that to what it was just 4 days before that, it was in the 50s. So these wide swings in weather patterns that we're talking about, that you've been talking about, are kind of starting to show up here a little bit, especially as you look into what this week looks like in the northern states. You're starting to see some big Arctic weather move in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had a polar vortex disruption from a sudden stratospheric warming event, one of the earliest ever seen. Actually occurred in November. We only had a couple of other times that we've had November sudden stratospheric warming over the Arctic, which then sets the instability in the polar vortex, which then sets the upper airflow pattern to direct this Arctic air down into where people live. And it's a center east focused weather pattern. Not, the West is going to be on the warmer side actually, and it has been actually on the warm side. If you look at California and Colorado and the Southwest, they've been on the warmer side. And so there's going to be waves of cold. We'll get a brief warming up like we will later in the Christmas week, and then another wave of cold. We're going to keep getting these bands of cold coming in as this polar vortex continues to be unstable. And I think I actually believe we'll get another sudden stratospheric warming event. Usually when you get an early one, you get another one typically later on in January. So we'll be on the lookout for a secondary one that then elongates the winter into March, maybe even to April. So, I think we're going to see, this is not the last. And another big thing is that we're seeing a lot of snow starting to fall. Really, some significant snow. In some places, record-setting snowfall. And that's going to be the pattern. Last year was cold and dry, top 10 cold. This one's going to be top 5 cold. It's going to be cold and snowy. And I think we could be looking at one of the highest snowpacks in the center northern grain belt as we head into March. 2019 was the last time I think we're going to see a snowpack similar to this. And you know what that means. Spring thaw, snow melt, rivers flood, those areas that are the ground that's near those areas. You're going to have a lot of acres that are not going to get planted in those lower lying regions. There'll be a lot of acres that will be delayed in planting because of the excessive river levels and rapid snowpack melt when the spring comes and it takes this record snowpack and melts it. So that's going to be, that's not today, but that's something that we'll be watching. Like 2019 caused a really, really challenging planting season that year, if you recall, and we did get a big move in the grain markets, especially corn, and yields were fairly below trend that year because we got off to such a slow start and in such wet conditions. So that's kind of where I think we're heading towards. And in the meantime, South America looks great. I think a significant soybean crop's on the way for Brazil. Supplies will be coming in March. And so it's really important to get China to buy as much soybeans from us by February. And I think that's what actually Besson said yesterday, the day before. They expect all its purchase to occur by February. And I wonder why it's February, because it's going to be hard for them to buy soybeans in March with a big soybean crop harvesting from Brazil. Well, whatever upside there is in soybeans coming from Chinese purchases, if we haven't already seen the full upside, it'll be between here and February. Then I think it's going to be very difficult for March and April to get anyone excited about Chinese purchases of U.S. soybeans. It'll have to be more planting concerns or something like that. So that's where I think we're at. Obviously, second crop corn, we don't really start worrying about that in late February as we get planting further along. It's really March, April. That's a light year away. That's not something we're going to be worrying about any time in the next 30 to 60 days. It's out there still, and so we just still have a whole lot to go with in South American weather right now, other than maybe Argentina getting hot and dry in January, and the deep South and Brazil getting hot and dry here in February, in December and January for rice. But the problem is Brazil has become so prolific in their soybean production that now Argentina production as a percent of Brazilian production is small. And so it begs the question, does it even matter? Everything matters, but it's like if Brazil has 180 million metric ton soybean crop and Argentina is producing a 50 million soybean crop, and let's say their crop's off 20%, which would be significant, 10.
Right.
Well, 180 to 170, it's like it matters a little, but does it matter that much? The answer is no, it doesn't. So I almost feel Argentina for soybeans doesn't. Yeah, you could get a little bit of a rally, maybe a week, a little. I just don't see how you get a big a big weather related rally. Shoot, a few years ago, we had the 1 in 100-year drought. We got a modest rally out of it. Corn it can still matter. Corn can still matter for weather, but I don't think the soybeans can really much. And so I don't know if it's all about Chinese purchases or not. Other than that, weather's going to have to be an issue. We're going to have to worry about our crop to get a weather issue for soybeans at least.
So, Sean, I'm asking this question: if you were looking at the marketplace right now, and you're thinking about next year's crop, and you're kind of walking through what my mix is going to look like as far as corn to bean ratios and wheat to rice ratios and those kind of things. As you're looking at this, just like we talk about soybeans down in South America, the American soybean grower has to start taking a look at how many acres of soybeans do I really need to be growing right now, and what's that look like, and how are we going to continue to keep this pace up as we move things forward. As you're looking at this, what are some of the thoughts that are going through your head when you start looking at how soybeans now play, U.S. soybeans play into the world marketplace?
The problem is Brazil produces so many soybeans that the only reason that we need to produce more soybeans is for domestic demand. China doesn't need to buy any soybeans from us. They're doing it for political reasons. They could sold their soybeans from Brazil, no doubt about it. They don't need to buy soybeans from us. So domestic demand primarily comes from the renewable diesel side, and we just can't figure out what the rules are. What is it going to be, and what is it not going to be? And we're not going to allow used cooking oil to come in from outside. Now we are going to allow it to come in. What is it? Are you going to allow it to come in? Because if you allow it to come in, then you don't need as much bean oil. If you don't allow it to come in, or you tariff the heck out of it, then you need a lot more bean oil. So you need a lot bigger bean crush. In order to determine how many acres you need, you have to determine what are actually the rules. And it doesn't sound like the government is able to tell us clearly they keep flip-flopping on this stuff. We want these big mandates. Yeah, but now there's a lot of exemptions. So I don't really know how many acres of soybeans we need. What I can tell you is farmers are going to, knowing what's going on in South America with Brazil production for soybeans being prolific, they're going to continue to plant a higher number of corn acres until the rules for soybeans become clear. And it's a logical thing because they know what the rules are for corn. We know we don't need China to buy corn. We're selling all kinds of corn to all kinds of other people. We know what the ethanol rules are for corn. We know what the feed demand thing is for corn. We know that Brazil is not really in the same position growing corn like they are soybeans, and their corn-based ethanol in Brazil is going parabolically. So most of the extra corn they're growing now is going into corn-based ethanol down there, which means that their exportable supplies are really not going to grow much. So corn's got a great story. Soybeans, I don't know what the story is. I really don't know what the story is. So if you're a farmer and you're saying, what the hell should I do here? I'm going with corn, especially if it's on good ground. And if you, in my meetings, especially in the Midwest that I just had last week, there's a ton of preparation of anhydrous and such that has already been committed to corn. We're going to plant a lot of acres of corn next year unless the weather is not good. I'm not saying we're going to plant 100 million, but I think it's going to be upper 90s. I don't think this idea will come back to 94, 90. I don't think so. Not with what I'm hearing and from what I heard last week and from other sources that I've been talking to. I mean, there's a bunch of acres that are committed to corn and they're not going to go back from what they've already done to prepare the ground for corn. So I'm thinking 97, 98 million acres of corn's coming up because the market has no idea what the rules of engagement are for soybeans. And so we get this thing, they're going to hand $12 billion out back to farmers yesterday and as part of a tariff relief plan. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm not very good at math, but I don't think that covers it. No, I don't think that's quite going to cover the loss economic value that the tariffs have imposed on the farmers. I mean, everything a little bit helps. I'm not saying it doesn't help. And obviously, most of the farmers I know don't want handouts. They don't want government, central government planning. They want the markets to give them their bread and butter. But so we're back to, government handing money out to farmers because of these policies and because the government can't decide what they really want to do here on
Right.
renewable diesel and everything else. Just haven't decided. I mean, even for corn, increasing the national percentage of ethanol to all gasoline, they could easily raise it, E20 or E30, and with corn, we would not have a corn problem in the world. We wouldn't need anybody to sell it to. I mean, they could easily create renewable energy policies at home that the market can pay the farmer a fair price instead of some kind of a tariff twist is what I'm calling it, where they're claiming they're, giving some benefit back, but they just don't seem to be moving that ball forward. And so until they do, farmers are going to plant more corn. Not as the best story on the planet, but it's a more clear, concise, understandable story. We know yields have to come down significantly here in January. If they don't come all the way down, they're going to move the quarterly grain stocks down. We're going to have 1.5 billion bushel carry out for U.S. corn. Not the end of the world, but tighter. There's just a good story on corn that we don't need government intervention. We don't need China. We don't need any change in the renewable diesel. I mean, in the ethanol policy, it would help. We just need to keep doing what we're doing. Soybeans is just a basket case, my opinion.
Yeah.
Good case.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to compete. When you got someone down, you have a competitor out there that can grow 2 crops a year if they want to, and really and huge acres, and not just 2 crops, but two huge crops that they can grow at a time. So it's a significant swing when you start talking about soybeans and how that fits into the picture. Because just like you talked about, unless you are looking at the U.S. soybean marketplace as hey, this is going to go into more crush so we can make renewable diesel and so on and so forth, there's just not a good story for soybeans out there, right?
There's not a good story. And we lost our dominance in soybeans, and it's not coming back unless there's a significant change in the world order from what we have today. And, I don't see that happening. They have committed to being the king of soybeans. They have a lot more acres to plant if it's economic. It's not really that economic to do it right now. So like this year, I don't think they planted a lot more acres. They're just looking at maybe a little better yield. That's why the year-over-year increase is going to be fairly small. But you put a 12 handle on the soybean price, away they go in the market. That's the problem. We really can't get the soybean price up too much, or else they're just going to. So they're the governor on how high soybean prices can go, because they'll just keep growing more of it. And so we have to decide what our game plan is. Are we just going to stop growing soybeans altogether for export and just strictly grow what we need domestically? By the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that policy. Is that our strategy? Is our strategy that we're going to increase our renewable diesel and really commit to it and put rules in that are clear, commits to growing that domestic demand base? We have to do something, because exporting to China, although we're doing it now, is a short-term solution. They will not be buying soybeans from the U.S. longer term. They will not be doing it. In my opinion, they will not be doing it. And
yeah, there's no reason for them to.
No, I mean, they'll do it for the next 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. But in the long run, they're not going to do it. And one day we'll wake up and somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed and is angry, and then the whole deal is off, and we got nothing.
Yep, that's the scary side of that. When you're looking at,
and just remember, now that they grow soybeans in Brazil, so almost the entire country grows soybeans now. It used to be, but now so if the South is bad, usually the North is good. If the North is bad, the South is good. Like, it's almost impossible to have the whole country bad. I mean, it's such a massive country that to say that the whole country is going to have bad weather at the same time, I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but the chances of it happening to create a major crop problem is very, very remote. Yeah, you can have a problem in the South, and they can have some issues, and you could take a few, metric tons off the top. But I mean, to have like a crop down 30%, it's almost impossible to happen, because the whole country would have to be in an abject drought or massive flooding or something crazy. And highly unlikely that's going to happen, that you're going to get that kind of a broad weather of planted area and say we're going to have enough, shoot, the corn area for U.S. that matters. It's this little square,
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
take that, multiply by 50, and that's what you're looking at for Brazil,
Right. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
it's a tough deal. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Tough deal. I'm not trying to be negative or anything. I'm just trying to be realistic.
No, it's just, that's just something I've been thinking about a lot when you start looking at where do soybeans fit into the U.S. picture right now. And it's just hard to find a place where of any kind of magnitude soybeans come into play. And it's just getting tougher and tougher unless you come back to government mandates on fuel and renewable fuels and those kind of things. That's really the only play that soybeans have. Right?
Our only play is to sell soybeans is if we traded at a discount to Brazil, which we were trading at. And then we this China truce, and now we're Brazil and soybean and Brazil price and the U.S. prices come together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if we traded a discount, someone will buy our soybeans. Economics say you would buy one as long as there's no tariffs. Someone will buy a cheaper soybean from the U.S. Absolutely, but it's going to only be because we're cheap relative to Brazil, and that usually means it's not an attractive price. Usually. We're not going to be able to sell a soybeans when the price is 12 and 13 or 14. We're going to be able to sell it when it's 10 or it's 9.5 or it's 9.
Right.
Which is fine, but that's not really what we're trying to export a high price, and that's just not the way it'll work.
Right.
It's
below cost of production, and that's when you start looking at that. With why do it, right? Why do it all? All right, Sean. Good place to stop there. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information about what you're doing over at Hackett Financial. What's the best way to do that?
The website is Hackett, HACKETT advisors.com. We have a Twitter page at Feverdeck11. We also have a LinkedIn page. Once in a while, we'll put some interviews out there or some tidbits about our weather work and cycle. How we look at forecasting different markets, and viewership might find some interest going to those places on top of watching, obviously, your great show that I'm privileged to be on.
Well, Sean, I love having you on here, man. Look forward to having you next time. All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you. See you next year, loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like Exact Apply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Got Aaron Fennell back on to talk about what's happening in the equipment space. Aaron, how you doing today?
Greetings from the high plains.
It is very.
Since you're not here today,
I'm not there today. Not there today. I'm Kansas
he's
City,
over there in river country.
That's right. Yeah. The weather here is not much different than the weather back in the Panhandle. It's just a little more. Air's just a tad bit heavier.
That's 30 sure feels a lot different.
It does. There's a big difference in the way 30 feels. That's for damn sure.
Wendy was in Lincoln last weekend, and she's like, "It's 40 and I'm dying." I'm like, "Welcome to the east side."
Yeah, it's a dynamic.
You think the humidity sucks in the summer? No. The winter is when it gets you.
Yeah, it's just so much colder.
Right to your marrow.
Cold is
just
cold. Yeah.
all the way in.
It's biting.
Biting cold. Biting cold.
Biting cold. All right. Yeah. All right. End of the year here, we always like to do something where we kind of go back and take a look at where we're at and then kind of set the table for what we see moving forward, what we're going to do today. So I like to follow.
So you're saying the plates at the table?
The plates at the table. That's right. Yeah. we have a way to take a look at what's going on in the marketplace, trend lines, start seeing stuff develop, where we're at, and those kind of things. And the one thing about the marketplace right now, Aaron, is that if you take a look at, because of lack of new being sold, that has a direct impact on the amount of used being out in the marketplace. And if you look at these things roll through, you start seeing some trend lines develop. And one of the trend lines we're seeing develop now is, you know what? There's hardly any 1-year-old stuff out there. There's a bunch of 2 and 3-year-old stuff. And then you start really getting down into that 3 to 5-year-old stuff. There's even a bigger chunk of that, which is very reminiscent of what we saw coming out of the last big upturn that we saw, which was 2012, 13, 14. those slug of machines just were there, never went away. And we continue to see that same drive through the marketplace. And we're developing that same trend line now. So I guess, Aaron.
But just for the audience, what you're calling a 1-year-old today is a 25.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah. 25-year-old stuff right now. 2025 stuff right now is 1-year-old.
That's
stuff
in my shed.
That's right. And another thing too, I guess, as a preference to people watching this, is that in the dealer space, all the deals that were made during order writing period with that trade coming in, those trades, what you see out there right now for 2025 stuff isn't going to change a whole lot, simply because those things are being advertised as soon as those deals are struck.
Yes.
And so that stuff's out there. So you're seeing 2025 model stuff, and it's been like this for every year that, I don't know, the last probably 10 or 15 years that I've been doing this. As soon as those deals have been struck, those machines are out there ready to go, and they're for sale. More than likely, if you wanted to buy a machine that was there that's being advertised, you're going to be able to buy it. There's no one's going to say, well, it's not in yet, but the farmer's going to come take it off my books. Love you. It'd be great. The only one that you really have trouble with that is on a planter, because most guys are like, if I get my planter, you can have mine.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of there's not a whole lot of.
When I'm done planting, you can have my trade in.
There's not a lot of guys going to roll the dice on, I'll see if my planter comes in or not on time.
Yeah. Because guys did that once upon a time. You could even have the planter and then, where's my planter? Oh, let's look. Unsourced.
So that's planter's about the only one that you're going to be able to do. But looking at the market right now, if you're looking at 300 horsepower tractors, 175 to 299, 100, so on and so forth, 100 to 174, combines, sprayers, those kind of things. Whatever's out there right now for 1-year-old stuff that's pretty much the marketplace. It might change a little bit here and there, but it's not going to be a dynamic, like, oh my, there's 700 machines out there now. There's going to be 2,100 in 6 months. It's not like that. It's not going to be.
No,
it might be plus or minus 10% type of thing that you might see.
If that, I would say 5 at the most, just because we know that most of any 25 model purchases was, for the most part, regardless of color, regardless of location, very, very, very little of that was a onesie twosie.
Yeah.
That was all on the I trade every year, structured deals, that kind of stuff, multi-unit. So it's listed. That's it.
Yeah.
This is what's there. You'll have the off chance where dealers ordered a couple things stock, maybe. But even that is way, way down just because of so much used sitting on the lot. They don't want to carry new either, So you're going to have an item or two here and there that shows up that's not there December 1st. But for the by far for the bulk of any 25 models, the hay's in the barn. So here we are.
Right. Exactly. All right. So what I want to do today is I just want to bring up some stuff that I've been looking at and just kind of walk through what I think's happening and where I think things are heading, and how this will affect what you start looking at as far as what machines are going to be what, and where the value proposition, for lack of a better term, is going to start falling into. We'll go through that. So, Aaron, you do this every day, so we'll kind of walk through what you see happening as well from a real life scenario, what you see people asking for. I'm going to share my screen real quick here, and we will jump in here and talk about what's going on with this marketplace. All right. So if you take a look at what's here, this is a spreadsheet I put together. It's just a few things I've been looking at. So if you go out and look at the 1-year-old stuff, so I've got 300 plus right here. That's 300 plus horsepower tractors, 175 to 299 horsepower tractors, 100 to 174 horsepower tractors, combine sprayers, and planters across the top. And I wanted to break out. I had it broke into 1 to 2-year-old machines, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, and 10 plus. And that's usually the year buckets. When I'm looking at inventory, that's kind of how I look at it, right? But I wanted to break out the 1-year-old from the 2-year-old just so you can kind of get a feel for the dynamics that are there. The 3 to 5-year-old stuff, if you break out the 3-year-old stuff and then just look at where the 4 and 5-year-old stuff's at, the biggest chunk of these numbers that you see here is actually in that 4-year-old stuff, which makes sense because that would have been that's 2022, 2021, 2022 in that time frame when there was a big move in the marketplace, right? So when did you see a lot of the stuff hit the marketplace? It was in 2023, but that the
it was
surge
22 model.
It was all 2022 model stuff and basically half of the 21 model stuff just because of how things were getting delivered during that time frame.
Right.
And
they showed up with the 22s.
They showed up with 22s, that's right. And there's the 23 model stuff that came in there as well, but there wasn't as much 23 stuff in that mix just because of there was some pullback a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The reins were already tugging.
Right. So I'm looking at this. When I look at this, I see a similar pattern to what we saw coming out of 12, 13, 14. And a lot of that has to do with what you see right here in the 3 to 5-year-old stuff. That pattern across the board, it's not like one unit, one group of machines or something else where there's not a big slug of 3 to 5-year-old stuff. Because if you look here, that's where it's all at, right?
Right.
300 horsepower tractors, you have almost twice as many 3 to 5-year-old stuff as you do 1 to 2-year-old stuff, and then you have again a little over twice as much, 3 times.
You're all the way across the board from the 3 and 5-year-old and the 2-year-old. 3 and 5 is double all the way across the board.
All the way across the board,
so at least double.
Yep. So the interesting thing that you'll see happen here in this 1-year-old stuff is like when you go to 26 order writing period, you're not going to see a big slug of new machines ordered in 26 for 27 deliveries. So the 2026 model stuff that you see out there and those kind of things that are coming through the marketplace aren't going to have this huge. So again, the 1-year-old stuff that is coming through this next order writing period, when this 1-year-old stuff now is quote unquote 2-year-old stuff, you're going to start seeing this number, the 703, 307, 796. It's going to be the same, if not maybe a little bit smaller. So that front end stuff on this 1-year-old, 2-year-old stuff that you see coming, there's not going to be as much of it out there for people to go get after.
Right.
Which it's going to have a different value proposition when you start looking at how those things hold up. Well, my fear is when you start looking at this 3 to 5-year-old stuff, even if you sit back and really say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go out and try to look what's there. The value of that machine, just because there's so many supply and demand, those kind of things that come into play, it's going to have a similar look and feel to the same stuff we saw in that 12, 13, 14 model time frame that we saw in that 2017, 18, 19 time frame.
Yeah.
And those machines were 3 to 5 years old at that point, and how those machines were playing into that. And it was just it was very, very much a commodity at that point, right? I mean,
a 12 model in 15, and I would even say combines, it was the 12 model. Tractors, it was the 11.
Right.
Which was both of those, keep in mind, both of those were the first year of a new series.
Correct.
So you had the timing of first year of new series, and with the combine, it was a whole new combine.
Right.
At least the cab, and a bunch. There was a lot changed, not like 6 to 7.
Yep.
From the 9770 to the S670, there was a lot of change.
Yep.
So the tractor's not much, but you still that's when you had the addition of the filter in the John Deere world. So you look at that with what you're saying with look at a 12 combine in 2015.
Correct. Yeah.
The easiest description I can give you that we thought as a dealer was a 12.
Yeah.
And they were branded like that until like a couple years ago.
Right.
They spent a decade as, oh my God, a 12 S series combine. Want nothing to do with it. Now, if I had 50 of them on the lot under 1,500 SEP, I could sell every damn one of them by noon today.
And during that time frame, the thing about that was, obviously we're looking at a depressed a little bit of a depressed market during that time frame. But the one thing about it was there was no differentiation between them, right? There were so many of them,
right?
That you couldn't like, oh, my 12 is better than yours. Why? Well, I've got 3 less hours than you do, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It was very the difference in between these machines, and to be honest with you, the specs during that time frame, that was really when you saw the normalization of specs across a wider spectrum of machines.
Yes,
right?
That's when within that first, well, those what we used to call the trouble machines, the 12 through 14, that's where the world learned how to spec a combine.
Right.
Like, they offer power fold now. But
right.
Oh my gosh, it's like 15, 20,000. Ooh, we don't want that. And it actually holds a cup less. Oh, we don't want that. Okay.
Yeah.
Trade-ins. Hey, we got all these nice combines. Well, they don't have power fold. No. Well, you got to have power fold. Damn. Here we go.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that was
another thing. Power fold's the big one because we as a dealer, we've done that not once. Should have learned twice. We did that. And the only way you do that is you strip the combine down to the rotor and rebuild it up. So it's not something you just do.
It's not easy. Yeah, you don't.
Power cast, 3 hours in the shop, bolt it on, hook it up, program it, done.
Right.
That's something you can do. 4-wheel drive, that's something you can add on. Those are all, every so much is easy add-on, power fold is not.
Right.
You know?
And that's the same thing, like we started seeing the movement in the very of the feeder houses, right? So the 5-speed feeder house versus 3-speed
5-speed versus variable speed. Now you have in our part of the world, we as a dealer have been really focused on that 5-speed feeder for a long, long time on the 7 because everybody loves it on the 8. So, and one of our cutters runs it. So that got used machines out there. Ooh, everybody likes that. So that's what we do, to where now a variable speed combine, which is normal as the day, is like, yeah, I guess it'll work.
Yeah.
You know,
one thing that worries me most about this, I'm going to show this one more time just for this, and I'll put
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something cool to relate to that with the number glut and the now versus back then. The 12 combines are the 22 row crop tractor.
Exactly.
So you take take an 18 8370R. There's probably a handful of things you go either way, assuming ILS IVT, right?
Right.
Okay. There's like one of 2 light packages, one of 2 cab packages. Pretty simple, like 9770s were, right?
Yeah.
Then you go to the 8R. Well, what level of lights? There's 10.
Right.
Well, it's got premium cab. I don't want that junk. I want signature. Well, It's got everything but that seat and the subwoofer. Doesn't matter. Got to have it, you know. There's so many variances of the 8R tractor today that for my take, as far as the industry norm, I thought signature would be absolute must-have. You're not going to sell a tractor if it doesn't have it. And I'm completely wrong. Completely wrong. Yeah, it's great. It's cool. But you'll sell tractors all day long without it.
Yeah.
If you're in the market. You know, that's just what it comes down to. So I think not to that point, Casey, just because there's the combine specs had a lot to do with where you're at, your location. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Out here, never need 4-wheel drive. We don't even need power fold. We got no trees. It doesn't rain. We just soon have 1,000 bushel funnel on top.
There's barely bridges.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 16 row heads that don't fold are always on the combine going down the road because there's no people. You know, we're in a different world, but our combines match Illinois combines so they can go there.
Right.
See what I mean? So your 8Rs, you know, everybody's feeling that out from the dealer world. Do they have to be signature? Do they have to be, what about the cheapo Plano ones? I've sold the easier 8R for me to sell right now is the stripped down cheap one, just because of the price, you know?
Yep.
And that tractor can go in a little more pockets than just corn and bean guy.
Right.
Who is not impressed with life right now. So
no, they're not.
It's kind of from the dealer world. It's a mirrored situation of sorts. Even down to how do we navigate out of here moving forward.
Yep. One thing about this that I want to bring up and show while we're talking about this, and some concern that I have, is that when you look at this 1-year-old, 2-year-old stuff and how it falls into the mix, typically what you see happen is at the top of the machine funnel, right? When you're talking about year ranges and what's in the marketplace, when you're talking about that, typically the 1 to 2-year-old stuff this time of the year, moving into the first quarter, is and it tends to grow because of deliveries and whatnot. But as you're looking at the stuff come in, typically this 1 to 2-year-old stuff is at the top of the funnel. That's where the most of your equipment lies. And then as you go down through the year ranges, that kind of slims in, right? Well, it's not like that right now, and it's only going to it's inverted, right? So that you've got the least amount of supply at the top of the food chain and the most amount of supply at the bottom of the food chain. And that's going to continue. I think that's going to have a huge problem when you start looking at the marketplace and how those things play out, is that it's going to drive the price of those other machines, that those older machines, they're going to get cheaper just because of where they're at. As far as, again, same thing we saw coming out of in 12, 13, 14 model machines that we went through the 20 teens time frame. That's the exact same thing we're going to see happen there, where those machines become very much a commodity. The problem that we see right now is, you saw those numbers. There's a lot of everything and everything.
Yeah.
And that's going to continue to be there, except for at the top, which is actually a really good thing because you want to keep feeding that, right? Those numbers are keep trickling down. So there's those 300 plus horsepower tractors, there's whatever it was, 700 machines or whatever it was. Those same 700 machines are going to work their way through that, all the way down to those cycles throughout the rest, through time, and
right.
work their way through that. But in the past, we would see like 2,500 of those and not 700 of those. Right. And so that just keeps broadening its way out. The thing about where we're at now with the space,
but in your normal funnel too, we don't have 4,000 3 to 5s.
No, and that's my concern, is that even if tomorrow you wake up, hey, we're going to have a giant auction, we're going to go out and sell all this stuff and take all this stuff out of there. You got to have buyers for all that stuff, and there's not 4,500 buyers out there right now for 3 to 5-year-old machines, right? Because the thing about the auction side of that, it stops the subsequent trade-ins after that. So you went and knocked them in half and took away. You still have 2,500 machines sitting out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not like it's more manageable. And
right.
It changes dynamic. It's like you feel a lot of pain come into that time frame. But then once that was gone, then that gives a chance for the market to reboot and start to bring back prices back up. But it's an incredible amount of pain that you have to go through to make that happen.
Oh, absolutely.
i.e. 2022 through where we were at basically through the end of this year so far as auction values go. That's going to continue to grow. The thing about machines like that, though, as you look at auction value for those kind of machines and where they fall into that, those are the machines that have the hold their value even at auction in a downturn better than machines at the top of that funnel, like the 1 to 2-year-old stuff. Those machines you see out there, like, as long as you're not going to see a huge, like, oh, we're going to lose 60 cents on the dollar type of thing at an auction on a 1-year-old machine.
Right.
A 3 to 5-year-old machine, that same dynamic doesn't take place on there because, again, it's a different buying group with different buying patterns and different wants and those kind of things. We start looking at that. The 3 to 5-year-old stuff, is right on the cusp of that 6 to 10-year-old stuff where that's a price-driven marketplace. 3 to 5 is kind of like you got 1 foot in each arena, like the price-driven marketplace as well as the, hey, this is now has the specs that I want to get, and I can afford that level of spec now for my farm. It's a little bit of both, right? It's a spec-driven marketplace as much as it is a price-driven marketplace. When you get below that and you get to that next level, 6 to 10-year-old stuff, that's a price-driven marketplace where guys are looking at the price of the machine and what they can buy it for, and not necessarily as much on the spec side.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Just like, well, and on the dealer side, the hardest part is you have that group of 4,500 that theoretically gets cheaper every day. And that is shoving everything below it down every day too, right? Yep. Makes it really hard to trade and get those 4,500 out of here, because what you're trading in falls on its face every day too.
Right.
With the downward pressure. So it's like you trade for the 10-year-old and it's a win, but is it? You know?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like,
right.
Today it's a win. 6 months from now it might not have been.
Right. 100%. And so as I look back on this, what I see happen for 2026, I see the top end of the funnel. I'm not saying it's like some super premium that, oh my God, we're going to see 40% increase in price. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that
not 20
prices, what we're seeing right now is that the solidification of that pricing structure that we see right now on that 1 to 2 year old stuff, especially 1-year-old stuff.
Yeah.
If you're in the market for that, one, it's a finite model of machines that, you know, if you go look at there's 700 machines out there right now, 300 plus horsepower tractors, all makes, all models, right?
Yep.
And you take the number of dealerships across their dealership locations. That means like every 5th dealership has a 1-year-old 300 plus horsepower tractor, right? And you got to think about that. 300 plus horsepower tractors, everything from if you're talking about a John Deere tractor or
that's a 310 to a 640 to an 830.
830. That's a wide spectrum. That's a big spectrum, right? Everything from a 300 plus horsepower row crop tractor all the way through 9RX 830.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's like that whole thing. Steiger 715, like all that mix in there it's a huge number, and there's not that many.
Exactly.
So if you're in the market for something like that, that's going to change the dynamics of what you look at buying. Now, the price of those machines, you know what those are, right? We talked there. It's $600,000. It's $500,000. It's $450,000, right? It's big numbers. So it's not like there's a swarm of people going, oh, I got to get that 1-year-old machine and go in there. It's just not. That's not the magnitude that we're talking about.
No, not at all.
What we're talking about there, though, is that is going to lock those prices that are there right now are going to draw people in that are, hey, this is the machine I'm going to buy for the next 5 years, right?
Yep.
This is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go get this machine and I'm going to run that. Because the trade cycles for all of this stuff, from 1-year-old stuff to 5-year-old stuff, everyone that's looking at these machines right now are taking a hard look at it. I would normally trade something every 3 years. Just throw hypothetically a tractor combine, whatever it is, every 3 years. But because of where they're at price-wise and those kind of things, I'm going to trade it every 5 years.
Right.
I'm going to trade it every 6 years or something like that. And those trade cycles have gotten longer, which means that these machines in the marketplace aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Like those numbers aren't going to come down. They're going to, because it's just the buyers that are coming to the marketplace. We've talked about it here. Like we've seen plenty of buyers come to the marketplace. It's just what they're coming to the marketplace to buy right now, they're going to keep for a lot longer. So that churn that we see in the market, and when they go from 1 to 3 to 6 to 10, so on and so forth, those numbers are just going to kind of stay there and be stagnant because there's just, again, there's that churn in the market where I'm bringing my 3 to 5 trade in so I can buy that 1 to 2 year old machine. It's not going to be as dynamic because, again, guys are holding stuff longer, and it's going to continue to drive that up. And we're also seeing that those same ranges, what used to be, we talked about this about 3 or 4 podcasts ago, but what used to be a 500-hour machine probably now is a 750 to 800-hour machine,
right?
Just because of the time frame guys are keeping stuff. And I think those are the things that you're looking at. You should trade in a 1,500-hour tractor, but today that's going to be a it could be a 2,500 hour tractor, which used to be the old 1,500 hour range.
Oh, it is.
Those things all make a big difference now when you start looking at how those machines fit into that. So, changing market, dynamic market. Go out, reach out to a guy like Aaron, and have him walk through what those things look like. So, Aaron, good place to stop. If folks want to reach out to you, get more information about what you're doing over High Plains Wholesale, what's the easiest way to do that?
Well, I tell you what, High Plains Wholesale has a Facebook page and a TikTok account. I have video specials on there. You can catch me on Twitter or X by my name, Aaron Fintel. Also on Facebook, LinkedIn. Call me or text me, 308-760-1193.
Right on, man. Aaron, I always appreciate you being on the podcast. Love having you on, talking about this kind of stuff. We talk about this kind of stuff like for an hour before we hit record, so there's probably more information that we probably could have done that beforehand.
Nerd alert.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. Really enjoy having you on here. Got Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson on there. Thank him for being on as well. Also, Sean Hackett talking about what's happening in the marketplace. Appreciate you guys being on there. A lot of stuff happening right now in the marketplace. Dynamic changes in the marketplace. It's different than we've seen in the past. So it's a great time to do a lot of research and study what you see happening. If you want to see the video version of this, check out Farm Journal's YouTube channel. Check that out there. You want to see the audio version of it, go over to AgWeb, and you can see, I guess you can listen to the audio version over there. But all those things come into play. A lot of good information out there, what's happening in this machinery space, which is going to hinge greatly upon what's happening in the market across the board. So can't thank everyone enough for being on the podcast. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour. Let's move smart, folks. Out.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.